This is definitely the card of all time. Balloon Lizard, a level 4 Earth reptile monster released in Invasion of Chaos. Oftentimes you'll see it end up on top 10 lists of the worst Yu-Gi-Oh cards or monsters, and yeah, that's pretty accurate. It's not completely terrible, it has a semi-usable effect, and there are other monsters whose effects are even harder to resolve or just straight up hurt you for playing them. I mean, if we're being honest, Yugioh is technically the worst monster. When it is changed from attack to defense position, you can place any number of cards from your hand on the bottom of your deck. And like, why? But Balloon Lizard, while having a hypothetically decent effect, is usually grouped in with the worst monsters of all time. So what does it do? Well, Balloon Lizard only has 500 attack, but a whopping 1900 defense. Its effect allows you to place a counter on it during each of your standby phases, and when it's destroyed, you inflict damage to the controller of the card that destroyed it, equal to 400 times the number of counters on it when it was destroyed. Alright, so let's break that down. So in terms of concept, this monster is supposed to be like a balloon that keeps inflating and then lets out a loud bang when it's finally popped.
Bigger. Yes! Oh.
That is kind of cool, but the problem is that to make any significant impact, it needs to accumulate counters, which it can only do during the controller's standby phase. So you need to make sure that it survives at least one of your opponent's turns to do a minimum of 400 damage. If you want to OTK your opponent with 1, you'll need to make sure Balloon Lizard remains on the field for 21 of your own turns, because it doesn't gain a counter the turn it's summoned, so then it will gain a counter each one of those additional turns. Because 400 times 20 equals 8,000. But remember, it needs to survive 20 of your opponent's turns as well, which really makes a total of 41. This thing is twice as slow as Final Countdown, which really doesn't even see a whole lot of play anymore nowadays. A usual Yu-Gi-Oh game lasts 2 to 3 turns. But hey, if you manage to get 3 Balloon Lizards on the field, they can evenly distribute the work, needing only 7 of your turns to gain 7 counters each for a total of 21. The only problem is that there are very few ways to reliably summon or search for this monster. The most reliable would be Giant Rat, which summons an Earth monster with 1500 or less attack if it's destroyed by battle. That's some decent generic support, but when it comes to reptile specific stuff, what are you gonna do, special summon it with damage is equal to reptile? I mean, there are some extra deck monsters that let you search for basically any reptile and add it to your hand, like King of the Pharaoh Imps and Reptilian Echidna. Though these require other monsters to make and would potentially use up your normal summon, which you want to use for Balloon Lizard to get it on the field right away. But that only solves the issue of getting this monster into your hand or onto the field. Now we need to make sure that it actually survives long enough. Well, at that point you can just use a bunch of stall cards because there's no shortage of those. Messenger of Peace, Threatening Roar, Waboku, Swords Revealing Light even. The only problem is that because we need to keep this monster on the field, we can't use really good hand traps like Battle Fader or Swift Scarecrow, or any other cards that prevent direct attacks. But if you can quickly summon Balloon Lizard, and if you can prevent your opponent from destroying it or any of your back row, then you might just be able to pull it off. I tried this out against the AI in solo mode of Master Duel, and after a lot of trial and error, I had a game where I was able to get 3 Balloon Lizards onto the field with enough counters each to add up to over 8,000 life points. I found it best to get 1 on the field and start building counters, and then summon Reptilian Echidna to start searching for the others and just summon them the turns after. All that was left was to make sure that they got destroyed by the opponent's cards, so I sent them attacking straight to their doom. Finally, my soul can rest. Really, I don't think Balloon Lizard is an absolutely terrible card. I mean, even if you aren't able to keep it on the field for the OTK, it still at least inflicts some damage, granted it survived for a little bit. Though when its only purpose is to die, it's just outclassed by other cards that are more proactive in their strategies. Again, Balloon Lizard isn't like the other terrible monsters that hurt the player or themselves for literally no reason. It's a monster that can hypothetically deal a lot of damage. The problem is that it requires such a specific setup and execution that it's not worth pursuing. And really, I think that's what makes it the most frustrating, because when you see this card in your mind, you can imagine a situation where it actually works. but in practice it is not at all reasonable. Though Balloon Lizard is still going to be my go-to for jokes and memes, because how could I not? With its appearance in the anime under the ownership of Rex Raptor, and for some reason its immortalization in the Yu-Gi-Oh! HeroClix crossover, it'll be a mainstay of classic duel monsters. I'm just trying to figure out why they made him all smooth in these appearances. But let me know what you think about the monster of all time, and if you remember any other cards that could have been great but just never were. Anyway, this is GatorX, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch y'all later.